Hi, my name is Demetriana. My friends call me Demi, and I want to welcome you to my channel. I want to say hello to all of you watching from YouTube and on Rumble. I see you too. So today I am going to be talking about my journey as a sexual health educator as a Christian. Now, I think it's kind of interesting because there's, a lot of people that enter this field with different backgrounds, and I want to talk about how I got into it and how I see myself being in that field moving forward. So, I guess just to start off, I don't want to say I've always had a fascination about sex and how it worked. I think it's more so that I just recognized sexual arousal and I liked how it felt. As a Christian, I learned that sex is bad, but that you're supposed to save it to marriage, and that boys only think about sex and all of that, and girls, you gotta be careful, you gotta protect your virginity and things like that. And as a girl, I actually was really just sexually aroused, and I started masturbating kind of early, like at for a lot of people they started off a lot earlier, but I started masturbating at like 13, and I don't know, I thought I was weird. I was like, okay, I don't hear other girls talking about this. Am I weird? Am I different? Am I broken? I don't know. And so I definitely recognized that I had issues with discipline of the mind and sexual immorality. For a lot of you watching that aren't Christian, this may seem like, no, this is just natural. It's, what's wrong with having these desires? And I'm not saying that having the desires are wrong. It's just about being a good steward of our bodies, of our mind. And so that's just something very tantamount to our faith. And I really struggled with that. And so that's kind of my background when it comes to, sexuality and all that. But, I think also the Lord really just used that curiosity about sex to kind of start me on my journey of being a sexual health educator. And all of that started when I was in graduate school, studying public health. And I really, was fascinated with sex education and why Christians weren't talking about it more, why kids weren't talking about it with their parents, why it's awkward, all of these things. Just so many questions, just so many things that fascinated me. To make a long story short, I finished grad school. I eventually started working for my Department of Public Health, but it started off doing COVID contact tracing last year, January 2021. And after doing work in COVID, the opportunity to work as what's called a disease investigator. There are different titles in different organizations, but that's basically what it's called at our department. And basically, I work with people that have been diagnosed with STIs. I talk to them about, how they were exposed, whether they got adequate treatment, interviewing them, asking them questions about their partners to figure out how they may have been exposed, and offering partner services so that I can reach out to their partners anonymously to ensure that they get the treatment that they need and to get tested, because a lot of people don't experience symptoms with STIs, and so they may go around not really sure that they are spreading it to others or getting it themselves. And so that's what a lot of the things that I do. I provide sexual health education to them as well, in addition to talking to providers to make sure that we get the documentation to make sure that they get the treatment that they need. And so it's very, very rewarding work. And I call myself a sexual health educator instead of a sex educator because I have found that saying sex ed is very narrow and specific to STI prevention and pregnancy prevention. And I think sexuality is so much more than that. It's about relationships, connecting with others, building those type of bonds, not just with significant others, but also with family, with friends. And that might sound weird, but sexuality is so much more than just the act of sex. God created us to be sexual beings and to have that deeper knowing, not just with Him, but also with others in our lives. And so I consider myself a sexual health educator. And so that's basically what my journey has been. I've learned a lot from different people. It's been very interesting. As a Christian, it's definitely been interesting because I'm not preaching abstinence to people. I personally don't think that just preaching abstinence is effective. I think it's important to talk about sex and sexuality and what it's meant to be and how beautiful it is, and to talk about how it can become destructive if we engage in it outside of the context of marriage. But that's not what my job is at the Department of Public Health. My thing, and this is something I've really had to kind of figure out on my own, is that my job is to ensure that anyone that has an STI, that they get the treatment that they need, and I talk to them about how to prevent them from getting an STI again. That's from condom use and routine STI testing, because a lot of people don't have symptoms for STIs. A lot of people think that they gotta have warts in order to have an STI, but okay, I won't get on my soapbox here, but basically a lot of that education, it's not about preaching, hey, you shouldn't be having sex anyway unless you're with your wife, with your husband, because believe it or not, a lot of patients that I've worked with are married and their spouses cheat, and they end up getting symptoms and they get tested, or they find out their spouse cheated on them and they get tested even though they may not have symptoms. So it isn't just about people outside of marriage having sex. There's people that are in marriage that are getting STIs. And so it's just very important to have a non-judgmental lens when I'm talking about these things with patients. I'm not cringing whenever I hear someone say that they had multiple partners in the last 6 months, or that they don't remember who they had sex with, and things like that. And so that's something that as a Christian that's really helped me to navigate in my work. But I also will say that as of late, when it comes to sexuality, it's become a lot more difficult because now gender identity is becoming a lot more prominent. And at our Department of Public Health, they do, really want to affirm, individuals that are transgender. Now, I recognize that gender dysphoria is definitely a valid condition, and that there are people that are that is very debilitating, and they are dealing with so many things mentally, and they really want to alleviate that dysphoria and that discomfort. So I recognize that as being very valid. A lot of people may not think it's a thing, but it really is. But I also acknowledge reality, I acknowledge common sense, I acknowledge science, and I don't believe there are multiple genders. And this alone will get my video probably suppressed on YouTube. Hi everybody on Rumble. So so that's something I've really been considering, and I recognize that I will eventually have to probably begin to work for myself in the near future. I don't see myself staying in this field with an organization, unless there's an organization that recognizes the reality of gender identity, that there's male and female, and that's it. That's something that I've been navigating as a Christian as well. And it's not only Christians that are struggling with this. There's plenty of people that aren't religious at all and recognize the reality of two genders. And so that's something that that I have to navigate. And but it's tough, but it's also exciting because and this is something I'll talk about in a separate video, but I definitely do want to have my own work to do in this field through a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit I started back in 2020. It's called Can We Talk, and I want to empower parents to be sexual health educators for their kids. I want to empower grandparents, godparents, aunts, uncles, older cousins to be sexual health educators for the young kids in their lives. Because at this point in our society, we really shouldn't be depending on schools to teach children, because sexuality and sex, it's very value-based. Yes, there's science, there's facts involved with how our bodies work and how different functions work, but it's also very much value-based, and I feel like it's very important to really empower parents to talk about this with their kids and all of that, because they have different values that they want to instill in their children when it comes to things like this. And so that's something I want to do eventually. I definitely recognize that my job right now, that it's going to become more uncomfortable. There may be certain stances that I will have to take. At this point, I haven't had to do anything that would jeopardize my job. But, well, me talking about this might, but hey, it's fine. God is my provider. He is my source, no one else. And so that's something that I recognize is a thing. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about my journey as a sexual health educator, as a Christian, and what it looks like in today's world, and how I want to move forward in this. Please share in the comments, your thoughts about sexuality and what you think the future of sexual health education will be in our country. I know I'm speaking specifically in the context of America and of the United States, but I would love to hear your perspectives. And also any other sexual health educators out there, how you guys are navigating it as well. I would love to hear from you. Yeah, I want to start a conversation. But yeah, please, subscribe to this channel. Click the notification bell on YouTube so you can be notified of when I upload videos. I'm aiming to upload videos twice a week due to my schedule. So yeah, and also follow me on Instagram. You can find me at DemiDixon34, so that in case you don't want to have the conversation here on YouTube, you can shoot me a DM and we can talk there. Alright, well, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a blessed day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.